Pokémon Indigo League is an anime based off the highly successful Pokémon Red and Green games with Takeshi Shiro as the head writer, commissioned by TV Tokyo, and was dubbed by 4Kids for Kids in the West. I adore this show. It is one of, if not my favorite TV show. A brief history of my relationship with Pokemon as a whole. When I was about 5 or 6, my sister gave me her old copy of Pokemon Black. I was incredibly lost. She was midway through the game and I had no clue where to go or what I was even doing. But I never got rid of the game, as I've always been very fascinated by the series. One day after school, I randomly had a thought to watch the first episode of the anime. Don't know what came over me, but I did, and I loved it. The first episode hooked me in so much that I watched the next few episodes of the admittedly very limited of episodes available on YouTube, and bought Omega Ruby when that came out and loved that too. From then on, my obsession with the series grew and grew, and I can thank the anime for showing me how wonderful this franchise is, and I want to show it some love back. Despite naming my channel Emolga, I've never made a video about Pokemon, unless you count my really bad old Let's Play videos, which I don't. So tonight, for my 5-year YouTube anniversary, I will be watching, reviewing, then ranking every episode of Pokemon Season 1, The Indigo League, including all story episodes, filler episodes, holiday episodes, and banned episodes, every single one. But I need a ranking system, so here's a loose outline of what my ranking system is. It's a 0 to 10 system. 1 to 9 are all pretty much subjective and how I feel watching it. Going 1 to 9, it goes awful, bad, boring, not good, nothing, not bad, not good, just nothing. Okay, good, great, and fantastic. And these are subject to change however I like because it's my list. Oh, and what about 10s and 0s? Well, those are both subjective and objective. I may subjectively think an episode is perfect, or 10, but it has an issue in there somewhere that does not make it objectively perfect. This isn't nearly the case for 0s, however. For 0s, I'm going based off a YouTuber who I kinda got the idea from, Suede, and how he does his 0s. 0s are for episodes that are harmful. The contents of an episode is so disgusting that it ruins every little good point the episode has. There are not many 10s and there are not many 0s, so you don't have to really worry about the objective points during this. This list is mostly subjective. Also, a big shout out to It's Gabe for helping me make this monster of a video, and it's the reason this video did not get delayed as long as it already has been. Please follow him on YouTube, his Twitch. He makes some great content. With that out of the way, let's begin this just absolute beast of a video with Episode 1, Pokemon I Choose You. 10-year-old Ash Ketchum is given his first Pokemon, who doesn't like him very much. What a fantastic start to the series. Stunning animation, mainly in the Ash vs. Zero scene and the POV shot from the Spearow. And I really enjoy Pikachu and Ash's realistic friendship evolution. It's both, again, realistic and really funny. And Misty is set up great here. The best opening to any series, 9 out of 10. Episode 2, Pokémon Emergency. Ash takes Pikachu to the Pokémon Center when a criminal gang, Team Rocket, breaks into the center. Team Rocket is a real threat here and it really weirds me out. Same with the voices, I forgot how different they were at the start. Mainly an Ash, Meowth, and a non-Eric Stewart James. It's just, it doesn't feel right. I did really enjoy the entire Professor Oak bit, that was hilarious, and I also loved the more serious tone. It's a good episode, but just not as great as episode 1, 7 out of 10. Episode 3, Ash Catches a Pokemon. Ash Catches a Pokemon. Fairly alright, it's a by-the-books episode with some amazing highlights. The dialogue-less scene with Pikachu and Caterpie was great. And I love the line, things won't work out if you try hard enough. And it ended with a nice little fight on top of all of that. I can see why it's some people's all-time favorite, but I just found it pretty good. 8 out of 10. Episode 4, Challenge of the Samurai. Ash is challenged by a samurai, and then they have an intense Metapod on Metapod battle. Really? A series recap only 4 episodes in? Like, You don't think they've seen the last 3 episodes or they forgot about it? This episode had some pretty good animation and was quite funny. However, the plot itself was just not good. The Team Rocket stuff was awful and very childish. Metapod's evolution was mediocre and really did not feel earned. And I hate it when sleep equals win. Also, the plot could have been, resolved immediately if Ash just balled Metapod instead of going over to pick him up. It was just dumb. Good animation and good jokes cannot save this awful plot. 4 out of 10. Episode 5, Showdown in Pewter City. Ash fights the Pewter City gym leader, Brock, by setting off the sprinklers. Very stunted animation, pretty poor pacing, and an awful way to win a badge. The only positives here are Brock, and even then he's not that good in this episode. He feels way too dickish than what I'm used to. And his family was really sweet to see. And the beginning with Team Rocket was quite fun. Not a very good way to start off gym battles though, I must say. 4 out of 10. Episode 5, Clefairy and the Moonstone. The gang finds a scientist who thinks that Clefairies are aliens. Mediocre. Very mediocre. Not boring, but very bland. I had nothing to say after watching this. The only interesting thing was the Do the Macarena dub edition. I've just got nothing here. A textbook 5 out of 10. Episode 6, The Waterflowers of Cerulean City. Ash fights Misty where he gets a badge because he would've won. I love Misty's sisters and there were some amazing faces made here. But the animation was just overall very weak, especially during the fights, and it ended on such a lame note. Would've won is not a good response to getting a gym badge, and I'm glad they made fun of that later on in the series because it is so stupid. Also, this is the episode where Brock does his stuff. Just stuff. I still liked it, but it's far from the best this show has to offer. 6 out of 10. Episode 8, The Path to the Pokemon League. Ash fights an undefeated trainer and finds out that he abuses his Pokemon. Awful, just awful. Everyone here is just awful. Ash is a dick, unlike anything we've seen before. He's been arrogant in the past, but not to this level. He blames AJ for his Sandshrew disappearing, and while AJ's crying about it, he tries to steal his other Pokemon, and then when Ash loses a match, he calls cheats for it. AJ borderline abuses his Pokemon, and Misty and Brock are so underutilized. You'd think being gym leaders, they would have more of a role in this story about this unofficial gym, but no, they do nothing here. The only redeeming qualities here are Team Rocket, as they were pretty entertaining here, if a little bit stupid. And AJ's bond with Sandshrew at times was kind of nice when, he wasn't abusing him. Also, fun fact about Team Rocket, James specifically, this is when Eric Stewart started voicing him, and it sounds way more natural compared to Ted Lewis's James. I love Ted Lewis, he did a great job as Giovanni and Tracy. He should have not voiced James, especially when he gets a lot more out there later on in the series. The Advanced Series episode, You Said a Mouthful, does this concept 100 times better, and even then, that's not even a very good episode. 1 out of 10. Being saved from a 0 just from that very slight high point of at least AJ does care about his Pokemon. Episode 9, The School of Hard Knocks. The gang stumbles onto a high-class school that trains trainers using the game mechanics. The opening is super weird, but has a nice art style at least. This is a really fun and just funny episode with gorgeous animation. But most importantly, I love how they explain how levels work in the anime, being more of a how experienced the Pokemon is than a you must be level X to do Y. It makes sense that the game rules and the show rules are separated, and if they did game rules for the show, honestly, it would be boring. I'm glad they got that out right of the way, that these are two totally separate things. The only thing holding it back from a 10 out of 10 is Joe and Gazelle's conflict being wrapped out seemingly out of nowhere, and Team Rocket not really doing anything except wasting some time. Slightly below episode 1 in the ranking, but still very slight, and still a very solid 9 out of 10. Episode 10, Bulbasaur in the Hidden Village. While traveling, the gang finds a little cottage with a Bulbasaur as the guard. While traveling, the gang finds a little cottage with a Bulbasaur as the guard. The first half is standard, nothing special episode with mediocre animation, but the second half has Team Rocket falling into the more goofy personas, which I heavily prefer to their more serious personas, with a whole ass flying stadium to steal these Pokemon. Around now is when the more friendly banter between the group happens, and I love it. Mainly Brock and Misty's really fun dynamic here. And the village in general has a very nice and cozy atmosphere to it. Episode 11, Charmander, the Stray Pokemon. An abandoned Charmander is found and given the tough decision on whether to stay with his original trainer or leave. Amazing. Beautiful animation. Great characters. Emotional as hell story. And just overall amazing. Damien is an awful person here, but unlike AJ, is treated as such. Brock shows his undying love for Pokemon here, and Charmander shows both great compassion by staying on the rock like Damien told him to, but still has a good set of morals and decides to leave when he's shown what true love is by Brock. It also shows here that Pokemon aren't slaves to their trainer, like how Pete always liked to say. One of the very few 10 out of 10 episodes. Episode 12, Here Comes the Squirtle Squad. A rambunctious gang of Squirtles play pranks on the twerps. This episode starts off super weird with a fourth wall breaking intro. Super weird. I can't even put into words. It is weird. But after that comes a really funny episode. Even the more serious stuff is taken down a peg size, the light tone remains constant. The biggest conflict here is dyeing Misty's hair purple. Yeah, that's the most serious this episode gets. Almost every joke lands. No amazing animation or great morals, but it's just an entertaining episode, and you know what? That's all it needed to be. Just a good, fun, campy episode, especially after the gut punch of last one. Episode 13, Mystery at the Lighthouse. While staying at a lighthouse, the gang discovers a giant ash Dragonite. Another super weird fourth wall breaking intro. Why is this a theme early on? Kinda boring episode, has some poor pacing, Ash is incredibly stupid here, and it's just not interesting. It does have some really pretty animation though, with some nice blues and yellows, but still, that's far from saving it. 3 out of 10. Episode 14, Electric Shock Showdown. Ash takes on Lieutenant Surge and learns the lesson to not resort to performance-enhancing drugs. Really fun episode. Great animation, awesome fights, and a great bond between Ash and Pikachu. And Team Rocket is just a blast here. They're not trying to steal anything, they just show up from time to time and do a little funny bit. And I like the fact that even though this is one of their more elaborate costumes, the gang just sees right through them now. And then later on in the series, they'll wear absolutely, no costume, and then they don't. That I'm getting off topic. 8 out of 10. Episode 15, Battle Aboard the St. Anne. The gang battle aboard the St. Anne, I think. Very mediocre episode. It's got a few good jokes, but the main plot is unmemorable. But what does elevate it for me is getting to see more of the inner workings of Team Rocket. How it's more than just the 3 members we see, how they operate it, and most importantly, this is the first appearance of Giovanni. While not having a face obviously, and the voice is modified, it's still the first appearance of him. Also, James has some killer bits here. Because of that, it goes from a 5 out of 10 to a moderately high 6 out of 10. Episode 16, Pokémon Shipwrecked. The 5 main characters get trapped in the sinking St. Anne and must work together to escape. First of all, it's canon that Ash, Brock, Misty, and Team Rocket are all considered dead for the rest of the series. This is a super weird episode. Not only does it take itself more seriously with the stakes being death, but for the first time, Ash and Team Rocket have to work together, and Pikachu has such a weird yet hilarious vendetta against Meowth. Brock recites a Bible story, and overall, it had a way different tone than what I'm used to. I absolutely loved it. 9 out of 10. Episode 17, Island of the Giant Pokemon. The main 5 get separated from their Pokemon, and we learn what the Pokemon are saying. The stuff with the trainers is alright, but the amazing thing here is definitely seeing the Pokemon interacting by themselves and amongst themselves. There's not much to say, it's just wonderful to see the Pokemon interact. A part of me wanted there to be no subtitles, as it could have been a little bit more impactful that way, but then we wouldn't have gotten the great lines from Ekans about how Pokemon aren't bad, it's the trainers that do bad things, and the Pokemon just follow what they're doing. It's an amazing insight to the Pokemon world. 7 out of 10. Episode 18, Beauty and the Beach. Ash commits Grand Theft Auto, Misty gets perved on by several older men, and Team Rocket attempts to kill a beach full of innocent people. Awful. Not only is the plot all over the place, and the animation is a noticeable step down, the main component of it, that being the hyper-sexualization of Misty, a 10-year-old girl, is disgusting. For most staring down Misty, saying she reminds him of his granddaughter, which, might I add, in the original was, this would be more interesting if she was 8 years older, to Jesse and James making fun of a, again, let me remind you, 10-year-old girl for having a small chest, to Misty saying how embarrassing the whole beauty contest is, but she needs the money. It's just all so gross. I wish the episode was just the battle of the restaurants, but instead it has to be the standard anime beach episode with seeing the main characters in skimpy outfits. Despite having a good third or so that I liked with the battle of the restaurants and a few good jokes, it deserves nothing higher than a 0 out of 10. I hate this episode. Now, why was it banned? Fans believe it was banned for 2 reasons. The main theory involves a scene of James cross-dressing and using inflatable breasts to enter and win a beauty contest. This was during a time when trans people and cross-dressing weren't looked highly upon and could have been removed for that, especially with one of Misty's lines being, "Wait, I thought you were a guy." But in those scenes, it could have also had the episode removed for the fact that they were highlighting breast in a kids show, which could make parents a little bit upset. However, in 2000, the scenes were removed and the episode released as a lost episode where it aired twice and never again. That's where Theory 2 comes in. The episodes were removed for being too sexual and too creepy. I already explained how it is those things, and if that's the reason it was banned, thank God it was. I'm glad that Pokemon USA and 4Kids put their feet down and said this is not okay. It's highly likely that's the reason, as there hasn't been another beach/highly sexual episode since, and thank God for that, as this episode is just the absolute worst. Episode 19, Tentacool and Tentacruel. After becoming Gigamax, the Tentacool and Tentacruel try to tear down a city. First of all, this is my personal favorite episode. It's gonna get a way higher ranking than it probably should, because I am just super biased here. I love this episode. Nestina is really funny, and it's just such an out there character. Misty is wonderful here, especially compared to last episode. And the overall animation is beautiful, especially when boats and buildings are being destroyed. It's not perfect, objectively it is not perfect, but it's still great. 9 out of 10. Now, why was it banned? This episode was banned in the US after the September 11th terrorist attacks. After the attacks, the scene involving Tentacool destroying buildings looked in very poor taste, while a clip of it still remained in the intro. To my knowledge, it never re-aired on TV. It re-aired once on the WB after the attacks, and never on Cartoon Network. And when it switched over to Disney, I have no clue. There's not very well kept records for the Disney run of the show, but it's very easily available online and on DVD. Episode 20, The Ghost of Maiden's Peak. Brock and James fall for a rock that turns out to be a ghastly in disguise. This episode is just downright fun. It doesn't do too much impressive, but it's just a fun time. Some of the highlights here are just some of the insane shit that Ghastly pulls out. Misty proving that Jesus is real in the Pokemon world again. And Team Rocket are on their A game here. They're the best part of this episode. They're really funny here. It doesn't have the push that brings it into the 9 out of 10 range, but it's sitting at a very high and very comfy 8 out of 10. Episode 21, Bye Butterfree. Ash releases Butterfree after 20 minutes of it being useful for the first time ever. Meh, this episode's just okay. The stuff with Butterfree is really cute, and the gang doing the Team Rocket intro is always one of my favorite bits. But the dialogue here is really poorly delivered and weirdly stilted, and the ending with Ash releasing Butterfree could have been very emotional. Having Ash release the first Pokemon he's ever caught so it could be happy is a great idea. But they ruin it during the flashback sequence by using the intro as the music choice, when the original Japanese version had really good music already in it. It just makes it feel more comedic than sad in my opinion. It's still a good scene, flashback aside, but in my opinion, this episode's just nowhere near as good as people praise it for. 6 out of 10. Episode 22, Abra and the Psychic Showdown. Ash approaches Saffron City and challenges and loses against the demented psychic trainer Sabrina. Loved it. Both really funny and really creepy. Team Rocket is amazing for the brief time they're on screen. Ash has some really funny bits, and Sabrina has an amazing design. Lisa Ortiz does a fantastic job voicing her as well. She has such a deadpan tone that elevates the creepiness tenfold. And there is also some fantastic animation here. In particular, the clip of Ash falling down the mountain and pulling out Bulbasaur, that was beautifully animated. There's not much to say, it's just amazing. 9 out of 10. Episode 23, The Tower of Terror. The gang goes to Lavender Town to catch a ghost Pokemon. I am so split on this episode. On one hand, everything involving the twerps is bad. Bad animation, the pacing is slow, and they all seem very weirdly out of character. However, I loved the stuff with the ghosts and Team Rocket. It was so goddamn funny, with amazing animation to boot. I'm a big fan of slapstick humor, and this is slapstick to the max. This episode's also noteworthy as this is the episode where Ash f***ing dies, so there's that. I'm split on this episode, but I think I liked it a little bit more than hating it, so it's getting a medium to low 6 out of 10. Now, why was this episode banned? Same reason as with Tentacool and Tentacruel, it was pulled for a bit after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. No one knows why it was necessarily banned, as there's nothing objectionable in the episode itself. Fans just assume it was banned because of the name. Either way, it's back up and easily accessible. Episode 24, Haunter vs. Kadabra. Haunter gets into shenanigans for 22 minutes. This episode's a mess. The plot goes from an epic battle to where's Haunter with a 5-minute battle at the end, and Ash is an idiot in this episode. I f***ing loved it. The plot isn't good, yeah, but it's so goddamn hilarious. I can't hate it. It's constant joke after joke and all of them hit. Haunter is amazing, and it's a shame that this is the last episode we see him. I don't have anything else to say. I love this episode for an extremely simple reason. It's going right below Abra and the Psychic Showdown, only because that episode is both extremely funny and has a great plot. Episode 25. Primeape goes bananas. Jelly-filled donuts, am I right, guys? Guys, am I right? Ha, laugh. For the first 5 minutes or so, I wasn't really feeling this one. I thought all it would be is just jelly-filled donuts. But once Mankey/Primeape was introduced, it picked up tenfold. Not only is Mankey really funny, with the show's best use of slapstick until now, but getting an explanation on Ash's hat is really cool and something that hasn't happened for any other hat in the series. Another really funny episode that's getting ranked highly just for being really funny. A very low 9 out of 10, just skirting the edge of an 8 out of 10. Episode 26, Pokémon Scent-sation. Ash is not allowed into a tournament-required facility because he does not like the product they sell. It's a forgettable gym episode. It's got nothing special except for Team Rocket and Ash cross-dressing to get in. It was pretty entertaining. That was the only thing really bringing it up from a 5 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10 though. But hey, at least that doesn't make the episode completely worthless, and I am a big fan of Ash and Team Rocket working together. But I am really getting sick and tired of winning badges because he might have won, or he did some meaningless task that earns him the badge. The Saffron badge is an exception just because those episodes were amazing, but Pewter, Cerulean, and this are all super underwhelming. Episode 27, Hypno's Naptime. The gang tries to figure out why the children went missing 3 days ago, and why the Pokemon started acting strange 3 days ago, and why Hypno 3 days ago. Did I mention 3 days ago? This sucked. It's not outrageous, but it's just really boring, filled with plot holes, and had really bad animation that gave me a headache, which is fitting as this is the episode where Psyduck's introduced. The only saving grace is Team Rocket, as they do have a pretty good 5 minutes or so. Doesn't make me angry, but it still isn't good. Oh yeah, and this is the first time that Beauty and the Beach is shown to people outside of Asia before the 2000s in a brief flashback sequence. So there goes another mark against this episode. Episode 28, Pokemon Fashion Flash. The twerps help out a beauty salon while Team Rocket start up their own rival salon. I really like this episode. It's a pretty good episode. I really liked Brock and Susie's relationship. Vulpix was adorable, and Team Rocket have a different motive, which I always like, going for a get-rich-quick scheme rather than stealing Pokemon. The only thing holding it back is that Ash and Misty didn't really do much this episode, and it did drag a little bit long in the middle there. Other than that, solid episode. 7 out of 10. Episode 29, The Punchy Pokémon. Ash joins a Pokemon fighting tournament. Pokemon boxing tournament, that is. I really like this concept. Having a boxing match but with Pokemon abilities, that's so cool. However, it's kind of ruined with multiple plot holes and really dumb quirks. The main plot goes from make my father lose, as he'll stop training for this tournament, which in itself makes no sense. If he's going to lose, why would he stop training? To, oh, he can train all he wants, he just needs to see his family once in a while, which goes against everything we've worked for this entire episode. This is also the first and last time Ash uses Primeape. That's so disappointing, as Primeape is one of the most interesting Pokemon Ash has ever caught. And right after he uses him, he gives him to the boxer dude. He says he's going to make him a P1 champion when he literally just won the P1. Primeape doesn't need to go with you to become a P1 champion. He already is a P1 champion. I really do like the broken family stuff, and Team Rocket nonchalantly stole a Pokemon somehow, so that saves it a bit, but I'm still just utterly disappointed with this episode. 4 out of 10. Episode 30, Sparks Fly from Magnemite. The gang explores a dark, seemingly abandoned town. I really like this episode. I love the dark blues used in the art style, giving it a really appropriate creepy atmosphere for a fairly creepy episode, creepier than normal. And Joy was really funny here. Now she just did not give a shit about her job. It was just an overall entertaining episode with nothing amazing to push into 9 out of 10, but it's still getting a very solid 8 out of 10. Episode 31, Dig Those Diglets. The twerps help build a dam, but no one gives a damn as all they can think about is that Diglett chant. This episode had a lot I liked, and a lot I didn't. For starters, Team Rocket were on their A game this episode, and it was super entertaining. And Gary was in this episode, and he's probably one of my favorite main characters, so that was a blast to see him. This is probably his best appearance he's had. And the Diglett were so freaking cute. I really did enjoy this episode. However, the dubbing in both the mouth movements and the script felt noticeably weak, and the plot is really bland. I'm giving this a 6, close to a 7, but those two negatives really brought it down. Episode 32, the Ninja Poké-Showdown. Ash explores a mansion filled with traps that lead him to Koga, the gym leader. This episode was so close to perfect. It has amazing jokes, really cool animation, some fantastic fights. Why is Team Rocket in this episode? I love Team Rocket, don't get me wrong, but they bring the plot to a screeching halt when they showed up. Not only that, but when they do, they spend most of the time showing off Psyduck and how weak and strong it is. It feels like a completely different episode, and it goes on for so long. 8 f***ing minutes of Team Rocket antics. Unless it's a Team Rocket episode, they should get 5 minutes maximum, and even then, that would still bring down the episode for me. Honestly, this change in plot and tone and mood for 8 minutes, ruining what was about to be a super awesome gym battle, brings this episode from a 9 to a 7. A high 7, don't get me wrong, but still a 7. Episode 33, the Flame Pokémon-athon. Ash joins a Pokemon race. Just a fun episode, slow to start, but it knows what you want to see, the race, so it spends the second half all on it. Not much to say. However, weirdly enough, this is the most viewed episode of Pokemon to date. Weird. 8 out of 10. Episode 34, the Kangaskhan Kid. The gang recreates Tarzan. Boring. The only thing of note is the father definitely won Father of the Year by dropping his son out of a helicopter. And in the original, Tommy is really looking for some boobies to suck on, asking Misty and his mom a handful of time to suck their breasts. This was changed for obvious reasons. 5 out of 10. Episode 35, The Legend of Dratini. A wild gunman runs the Safari Zone and tries to kill anyone for any reason. First of all, the Japanese opening slaps way harder than it has any right to be. This is just a really fun episode. The stakes are kept fairly low for the most part, and when they do raise at the end, it's really gripping. The comedy here is some of the best in the whole series. Kaiser especially steals the show with just how funny he is. Everyone, just in general, is at their best today. It's an overall great episode, 9 out of 10. Now, why was it banned? This episode was banned in all non-Asian countries for the huge and improper use of firearms. Not only does Kaiser has a gun, but so does Team Rocket, and they both use it in pretty inappropriate ways, such as holding it to someone's head while loaded, finger on the trigger. That would already be a no-no, but the fact that they're revolvers too, guns easily found in a lot of Western homes, made it way too dangerous for kids that could be tempted to try it themselves. While I thought the gun jokes were hilarious, I totally understand why it was banned. Episode 36, The Bridge Bike Gang. The gang travels on Cycling Road to help a sick Pokemon across town. Love it! The episode is one very minor misstep from perfect. It has everything. Great animation, great plot, great humor, great battles, great characters, and even some Team Rocket backstory, which is always a treat to see. The only minor problem is a very small plot hole. Why does Ash have time to battle the bike gang, but not have time to wait 2 minutes for the bridge to lower? It's a stupid drama that has no need to exist, and it also kind of stems from a lot bigger plot hole. Why can't you just teleport the shelter over to the right center? Because it's shown that you can do that before. They're small little plot holes, but they still hinder my enjoyment of the episode. I want to give it a perfect 10, but again, those minor things are holding me out. But it's still getting an extremely high 9 out of 10. Episode 37, Ditto's Mysterious Mansion. The twerps hide out in a mansion and waiting for the rain to pass. It's an alright episode. It's pretty forgettable though. I like some of the faces made. Ditto is a very unique Pokemon, not seen a ton in the show. And I'm a sucker for the twerps doing the Team Rocket motto. It gets a solid 7 out of 10, but it does nothing really special. Episode 38, Electric Soldier Porygon. The gang travels into the cyber world to kill a computer virus, which in reality is just Team Rocket. I really like this episode. It's a very different, very uncommon theme not seen in any other episode, that being the digital world. I love the neon colors used while on the PC, and the 90s over-personification of computer terms. It's something I'll always enjoy. I also enjoyed when Team Rocket and the twerps team up, which is something they do here. It's not perfect. It's got some very bad pacing and some lame jokes, but the atmosphere around it made me love it. Also, Porygon is just such a cool Pokemon. It's a shame that it and its evolutions we're never able to see again. 8 out of 10. Alright, the reason anyone gives a shit here. At 6:51 p.m. on December 16th, 1997, Pikachu fired an electric bolt at 2 incoming antivirus needles, causing a screen-filling flash that lasted for around 4 seconds full screen and 11 seconds total. It sent around 700 children to the hospital with epileptic symptoms to full-on seizures. And to add to that, about 10% felt some sort of illness after viewing it. And this was one of the most viewed episodes at the time with 4.6 million watching. The episode was pulled, banned, and the show went on break for 4 months until fan demand brought it back, where the Pokemon Company apologized, explained what happened, as in all fairness, this flashing wasn't unheard of at the time and was used quite often, and promised this would never happen again. Now, why wasn't the scene removed or just re-edited? Well, I have 2 theories on that. One, the victims may have some sort of like PTSD from this episode, or Porygon in general, hence why both have not returned. And 2, the Pokemon Company, Nintendo, and all the VAs for this episode want to forget this episode exists, as it's a blemish on all fronts. Honestly, since it only aired once, I'm surprised we even have any copies of it, as if no one recorded it, it would be lost forever. Episode 39, Holiday Hijinks. Santa is real. Not much to say, just a good episode with a nice little Christmassy plot. Nice gags and, again, fun plot. The only problem I have is Santa never came back to Jessie because she didn't believe anymore, when really it should be the other way around. Santa should have not come back because Jessie saw him, and that breaks like the Christmas commandments or whatever. Either way, it's just a nice little silly, lighthearted plot. 7 out of 10. Now, why was it banned? This episode is banned as Jinx was heavily used. While this may be a kind of fun, lighthearted plot, Jinx's backstory is anything but. Jinx's design looks like blackface, there's no argument about this, which is a racist caricature of black people created in the early 1800s. While the Pokemon Company more than likely, hopefully, did not mean for it to come off this way, many still took offense, mainly Karen Boston Weatherfoot. As a month after it aired, it was pulled in the West and in Asia. Now, strangely enough, after Jinx was redesigned, the episode was edited to have the purple skin Jinx and was released in 2012. Only in Japan. Yeah, even though it was mainly the West who took offense, to the point where the entire Mon was redesigned for us, the edit never came out over here. Because the episode was pulled later rather than right away, original home media releases still have the episode. I recommend watching on the Poké-Corral VHS or DVD instead of a poor rip on YouTube. I'm also going to mention this right here instead of my overall thoughts, but this episode and the next were meant to air right after Porygon, but because Porygon was Porygon and pulled a Porygon, the episode was shelved until next Christmas. However, by then the continuity changed, mainly Ash had a Charizard instead of a Charmander, and it was weird and wacky. I'm just doing them both now as it makes sense to do it now, and that's how Bulbapedia has it listed. Finally, the banned episodes are done. No more taking too much goddamn time of the script on them. Hopefully I don't have to get any more sad than I did with these last two. Holy shit. Episode 40, Snow Way Out. Ash has a cute bonding moment with his Pokemon while dying from the cold. A pretty alright episode with an amazing scene. There's nothing too special about most of the episode. I did like the Jessie backstory and seeing Ash's Pokemon used in a non-battle scenario. But other than that, there's not much. However, when Ash builds a snow cave and is trying to stay warm, Pikachu and the other Pokemon refuse to stay in their balls and instead want to help Ash stay warm. It's beautiful and very touching. It's a 10 out of 10 scene in a 6 out of 10 episode, and because of that, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. Episode 41, Pikachu's Goodbye. Ash thinks about leaving Pikachu forever. Ugh, I really want to give this a perfect. I really do. The plot is so gripping and heartwarming and emotional. The music score is on point. It made me tear up towards the end. Why the f*** is Team Rocket in this episode? They break all emotion and ruin an amazing scene. That being Ash trying to decide what he should do. Leave Pikachu with the other Pikachus or have him tag along. As there's no set answer. And it's a hard choice. And it's not unrealistic to see why Ash would choose what's best for Pikachu. But no, the Rocket Gang comes in, steals all the emotion for 5 minutes, and then act like nothing happened. I love Team Rocket, but they do not have to show up in every episode. And to add on to that, there is some lazy animation that those two combined bring this perfect, amazing episode down to a 9 out of 10. As I cannot for the life of me get past the fact that Team Rocket ruins the most emotional scene in all of Pokemon. 9 out of 10. Episode 42, The Battling Eevee Brothers. Mikey abandons his pet and then learns to love it once it becomes useful. The first half sucked. Lazy animation, poor dubbing, mean characters, mainly Mikey's brother. However, once Team Rocket comes in, weirdly enough, all the problems are fixed. Before Team Rocket comes in, Misty and Mikey have a really cute heart-to-heart, as they're both living in similar situations, that of younger siblings that feel pressured to be like their older siblings. When Team Rocket steals the Pokemon stones in the food, the animation is wonderful, the jokes are great, and Mikey's brother get to show the true love they have for him. This is also one of the most clever Rocket schemes, as they almost got away with it for once. While I'm split, I'm gonna go more positive here, as I enjoyed more what I watched than I didn't. 6 out of 10. Episode 43, Wake Up Snorlax. The gang wake up Snorlax to save a city. Fun little filler episode, has some slow animations, but some great faces were made. And the jokes here are pretty good, mainly that hippie fight. My god, was that great to see. I also love when Team Rocket and the twerps work together, and that's the main gist of the episode here, so I gotta give it brownie points for that. Didn't do too much fantastic, but did nothing horrible. I'm finding out a lot of these filler episodes don't have much to talk about though, but they're still all just good. 7 out of 10. Episode 44, Showdown at Dark City. The twerps run into a seemingly abandoned town with two rival gyms desperately trying to become official gyms. This episode has an amazing concept. A beat up, run-down town that fears Pokemon trainers. That's so cool! Illegal street fighting to open a gym for monetary gain. Again, so cool! Using the two Pokemon's weaknesses, that being the color red, against their corrupt trainers. Awesome! And it delivers on all of that. The only nitpick I have are that Team Rocket was completely wasted here. And for how cute it was, Pikachu's catch-up bit drug on a little bit too long for my liking. I'm a sucker for darker stories in the Pokemon anime, and this episode delivered just that, while still being lighthearted when need to be. 9 out of 10. Episode 45, The March of the Executor Squad. Melvin hypnotizes Ash to do his dirty work. It's been a while since I've hated an episode. Wowza, this one sucked. Lazy animation, no jokes or even attempt for some, awful pacing, and the most hateable character since AJ. I hate Melvin. He's so whiny and creepy that it's weird to see the show wants us to make him want to win. While he isn't painted as a quote-unquote good guy, especially in the middle where he hypnotizes Ash, he's still given the Ash Dream speech and does win in the end. So overall, you're supposed to think he's good at the end. You'd think at the very least he changed by the end and was better than how he starts in the episode, but he never does change. And God, his voice is so irritating, so slow and whiny. The Team Rocket plot involving stealing the Executor to hypnotize and capture the Pokemon is a good plan, but it's also ruined by the fact that if you remove the steal part and it's just about catching Pokemon, it's the exact same as the good guys Melvin plan. Melvin wants to hypnotize people to give him money for a show. How are we supposed to like this guy? On the positive side, Misty was well used here, and I thought Ash's magic box, despite breaking the pacing tenfold, was at least entertaining, and seeing Melvin get chewed out was, at the very least, really cathartic to see, even if he does hug himself creepily close to the girl's crotch. To give it the bare minimum, at least he doesn't perv on a 10-year-old, even if Melvin gets way too close for comfort. And it doesn't have an abuser in it who wins, just a creep who does. But that doesn't save this episode at all. 2 out of 10. Episode 46, The Problem with Paris. Meowth falls in love with a human. Another really good filler episode. There are some pretty funny bits here, and I like the plot, but other than that, not much to say. Just a good episode. However, there is one thing holding it back. Well, 2 things. One of those things is Charmeleon, but I want to explain my problem with it when it evolves into Charizard. But my other main problem is the Meowth x Cassandra stuff. I'm not a fan of human x creature relationships in shows, and while it doesn't happen in the end, Meowth still fantasizes about it to an uncomfortable amount. Maybe I'm the only one who feels this, but for me, it's weird and always has been weird. 6 out of 10. Episode 47, The Song of Jigglypuff. The gang tries, and fails, to listen fully through Jigglypuff's song. It's alright. It has some decent backgrounds, as in some shots, like the Neon City ones, it looks gorgeous, while most of the others are just pretty meh. It has some good slapstick, but that's all I can really say. The story is really slow and boring though. After the second attempt of trying to hear the song, the point has been driven home, but they keep pushing and pushing it more and more. It got really boring there until the last 3 minutes or so. While it has one of my favorite locations so far, that being Neon City, it was a very mediocre episode. 4 out of 10. Episode 48, Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon. Ash and Team Rocket get trapped underground with a bunch of fossil Pokemon. Very fun episode. Had some amazing looking backgrounds with some not often used desert and caves that looked great, some great slapstick and jokes, and 2 of my favorite things, Gary and an Ash and Team Rocket team up. And Charmeleon was really fun here, showing off his short temper and not wanting to lose a battle. I hate that about Charmeleon and Charizard. It's explained in the Diglett episode that when Pokemon evolve, they turn into different Pokemon with different personalities, so I understand why Charizard is completely different from Charmander. However, thinking back to the Butterfree situation, it remembered being a Caterpie and Ash caring for it, so why doesn't Charizard? Even going all the way to Hoenn, Arbok and Weezing remembered being Ekans and Coughing even though they were evolved for way longer than Charizard has. It's so incredibly frustrating to see this abandoned Pokemon Ash cared so much for, who said Pokemon was one of his most loyal Pokemon, turn into the exact opposite. I'm only bringing it up now, and never again, as I consider them 2 different Pokemon, and I don't want scores to hurt later on because of that gripe I'll always have. 8 out of 10. Episode 49, Chansey Operation. The gang mess around in hospital. This is one of my favorite filler episodes. Dr. Proctor is such a fun, albeit a little creepy, one-off characters who is so damn shady in terms of being a real doctor, it's great. His fix for everything is super glue. The twerps show off their main personalities really well. Team Rocket is really fun here with another twerp Rocket team up. And some of the concepts shown off here are really unique or bring back old topics. It's wonderful to see how a hospital would work in the Pokemon world and seeing these human healing techniques used on Pokemon. It's great to get that Pokemon aren't bad, their masters are morality check back from Island of the Giant Pokemon, when Arbok and Weezing would not attack Chansey. But the overlying theme of this episode is just being really silly, and it works wonders. Filler are the best when they don't care and they go all in on the wackiness, like this in the Bridge Bike Gang, or show a new insight into a character and is really emotional, like Pikachu's goodbye in the next episode. 9 out of 10. Episode 50, Holy Matrimony. We learn about James' dramatic backstory with his abusive parents and fiancé. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with this episode. Animation is stunning. Jokes are on point. Emotional moments are aplenty. And learning about a character? Yeah, this episode has a lot of that. I love James as a character, even before this episode. He's such a fun goofball villain that, well, you don't want to see him succeed. You never want to see him hurt either. Finding out his backstory, being in a rich household with abusive parents forcing him into an abusive marriage, makes him all the more sympathetic, and a great contrast to Jessie's backstory, that being of a super poor household with no one truly being there for her. Despite how different they are, you understand why they have the same end goal. My favorite thing here is definitely James's parents. They pull so many stunts to get James to return and marry Jessie Belle that even when they die, James is skeptical. That small detail adds so much characterization to both them and James. This is a fan favorite for a great reason, and it's one of the few perfect episodes. Just ever so slightly behind Charmander, as, if I'm being fair, the emotional beats don't hit as hard here, but still, a 10 out of 10. Episode 51, Snow Near Yet So Farfetch'd. Something with missing Farfetch'd, I don't remember. It's so incredibly forgettable. I feel like they blew the budget on the last episode and forgot they had to make more after it, so they made this one out in a few minutes. Everyone feels so stripped down to their basic characteristics, the animation is poor and the dubbing is awful. Eric Stewart especially sounds like he's phoning it in, especially after Holy Matrimony. This lesson feels incredibly forced too. The character of the day goes from stealing to gee whiz, I wish we didn't have to steal, to stealing, to stating the lesson to Officer Jenny. To give it any sort of credit, at least it doesn't piss me off, it just bores me. The only thing that's really starting to get annoying is Psyduck. His shtick is getting really old, and Misty beating down on him is also getting old. 3 out of 10. Episode 52, Who Gets to Keep Togepi? The first Gen 2 leak, and everyone fights over it before finding out it was entirely pointless too. Very mediocre episode with a very fatal flaw. I did really like Meowth being a trainer for himself, that was quite entertaining, but other than that, I've got nothing besides this one flaw. Why does Misty feel the need to be the first to see Togepi? Like Ash found it, Brock took care of it, Misty did nothing. And the whole tournament is pointless as Togepi only likes the person it first sees, so that's 12 minutes of nothing fluff in the episode. If the Pokédex is going from no information to very important info on Togepi, why not have the second half of the episode be missing not knowing how to handle the responsibility of being a mother figure for Togepi, and cut out the tournament altogether? Instead, we get a boring tournament, Brock losing another Pokemon he should have owned, and Misty losing a lot of her original character traits that made her so fun to begin with. 4 out of 10. Episode 54, Bulbasaur's Mysterious Garden. Bulbasaur is about to evolve, but doesn't want to. After a mediocre filler break, they come back with another amazing filler episode. The animation is amazing, the colors are so pretty, and Bulbasaur gets some amazing characterization on top of him already being one of the more unique Pokemon in Ash's team, making him my favorite Pokemon on the team. He's very interesting. On top of that, there's a very intriguing plot with the Mysterious Garden. Just everything here works. It makes total sense why Bulbasaur wouldn't want to evolve after seeing what happened to Charmander. Everything works, except for Team Rocket. They were the biggest pace breaker here, but not awful by any means. The main highlight on top of this already amazing episode was the wonderfully done fight at the beginning, with wonderful animation and fantastic strategies. Really getting me excited for the next gym that's rapidly approaching. 9 out of 10. Episode 54, Princess vs. Princess. Jessie and Misty join a Princess Day tournament. Pretty mediocre. I like the short backstory for Misty and Jessie, and the idea of a tournament is cool, but they don't really do much with those two concepts. The backstories are ridiculously short, and the battles and the tournaments are all one-hit knockouts, which I hate. Just an overall boring episode with massive missed potential. 4 out of 10. Episode 55, the Purr-fect Hero. This kid adores Meowth, so Team Rocket tries to be the good guys or something. Really fun episode, albeit really flawed as well. I really like the kids here. They're very realistic representations of little kids, while having a lot of likability to them still. Team Rocket was also really fun here. Really the only characters that didn't work were the main 3, as they really didn't do much. However, even though I enjoyed this episode, there are some massive plot holes and noticeable padding. Why is Team Rocket, quote, not in the business of ruining kids' dreams when they try to separate kids from their favorite pets? How do they not notice how much heavier the box gets when Timmy is stuffed in there instead of Pikachu? Where the hell did these boulders come from? Stuff like that, which can be ignored with the right mindset, it still brings it down in my opinion. Another thing is the animation padding. There are multiple shots where a character is walking to one place with no dialogue or sound effects or even music. It's weird and breaks up the pace tenfold. Overall, while I did enjoy this episode, it has a bunch of issues I cannot look over for the life of me. 6 out of 10. Episode 56, The Case of the Canine Caper. Ash trains with the police. Your standard 7 out of 10 filler for the first half, but after Team Rocket comes in, it gets way better. The high-pitched voices and the megaphone that copies voices lead to tons of great jokes all around. Something else I really loved here was the obstacle course Ash and Pikachu went through, as not only is it entertaining, it's also realistic to how real police dogs train. Not much here, but it was just greatly entertaining. 8 out of 10. Episode 57, Pokémon Paparazzi. Buy Pokemon Snap, god damn it! I've got nothing. Nothing offensively bad, nothing outrageously good. Just nothing. The animation is subpar except for a shot of Ash punching Pikachu. That was weirdly well done. I did like the misunderstanding of capture versus capture on film. That was kind of funny, I guess. Other than that, it was just another really boring episode. Episode 58, The Ultimate Test. Ash participates in a test that could get him entered into the Pokemon League. This is more like it. Really fun, super interesting concept, how someone who doesn't have the time or is disabled would be able to compete in the Pokemon League, and some great character moments. Team Rocket is a blast here, even if it is super weird how and why they wanted to join the test. Having them and Ash use each other's Pokemon in battle is super cool to see. Hell, the battles in general were pretty good. And the test is both factual, so as the people at home could play along, and nonsensical, so as it's still entertaining for those who haven't played the games. The only major issue I have are the amount of mistakes there are. A green Weedle in one shot, Caterpie with a random purple square cut out of it, and Poliwrath being called Poliwhirl. It's super sloppy. Also, why is Todd still here? He did literally nothing this entire episode. Why is he the one filler character that's kept? 8 out of 10. Episode 59, The Breeding Center Secret. Misty tries to get Psyduck back from a breeding center. Fairly standard episode. I like Butch and Cassidy, and the breeding center scam is really clever, and Todd makes himself useful for once. But none of those go all the way, and they're all done in better episodes. I mean, I guess except for the Todd one, but who gives a f about Todd? Overall, I enjoyed it, but it's just nothing special. A textbook 6 out of 10. Episode 60, Riddle Me This. The gang find a hotel to stay in after arriving on Cinnabar Island. For being a plot episode, this one was kinda boring. They spent most of the episode on a filler hotel and tourist stuff, and then the last 5 minutes on mediocre fights. Blaine is a fun character, but he doesn't leave too much of an impression until the very end. The Torps felt like an entity to move the plot along rather than characters, and Team Rocket was so incredibly pointless here. At least Gary was good, but that's how he normally is. 3 out of 10. Episode 61, Volcanic Panic. Charizard vs Magmar fight. Now I know why the last episode was light on battles. They were saving the budget for this awesome battle. Half the episode is this amazing Charizard versus Magmar battle, and it's fantastic. The first half isn't that bad either. I really like how it's shown why Charizard wants to battle, as Magmar's strength and courage stopping the volcano from exploding hit Charizard in a way to really respect him, and some of the jokes here are pretty good. I really like how Ash is used to getting badges without battles, and after he helps Blaine out with the volcano, he asks for the badge and Blaine instantly shuts that down. And this visual gag of Ash getting so into the battle that he almost falls off and Pikachu has to hold him back, it's great. The weakest link by far is Team Rocket. They weren't too funny here and barely affected the plot, but they weren't on screen for that long, so it's whatever. 8 out of 10. Episode 62, Beach Blankout Blastoise. The gang try to save an island of Squirtles from a mysterious creature causing them to fall asleep. Super mediocre. I like the concept here of a mysterious thing putting all the squirrels and Wartortles asleep. That was interesting, but they don't really do much with it. It's just Jigglypuff, and they make sure to run that Jigglypuff falling asleep joke into the ground, as it happens so many goddamn times here. Team Rocket are kinda entertaining, but they're also really dumb here, way dumber than usual. There wasn't that much. It gets saved from being a 3 for the concept was at least good. That's it. 4 out of 10. Episode 63, The Misty Mermaid. On the way back to Viridian, Misty gets roped into helping her sisters with their new underwater play. This episode had awful dubbing, awful animation, and not as awful, but definitely weird pacing. But I still enjoyed it, despite all the massive flaws. I kinda liked it as a shut your brain off and go with the ride experience, as the underwater show itself is really fun to watch. I really liked how Team Rocket changes the show to be a real battle and the audience would never know. That's really clever. It's not a good episode at all, but it's going into the positive category with me. It's like a bad on ice musical. You know it's not gonna be good, but you go with it and enjoy it at the end. Also, Brock shouldn't know Missy has sisters, as he was doing his stuff during the gym episode. 6 out of 10. Episode 64, Clefairy Tales. Clefairies are actually aliens. I really did not remember watching this one as a kid, but damn it was good. There were some amazing jokes, some great visual gags, and the best slapping contest between Jigglypuff and Clefairy. I really liked how laid back and silly the plot was. I loved Oswald, basically a way better version of Seymour from the first Clefairy episode. Really, this episode is just a better version of Clefairy and the Moonstone. The only criticism I have is that Team Rocket did absolutely nothing here, and I feel like this would have worked better in an 11-minute format rather than 22, as the joke got a little bit old towards the end. Good episode, glad to see Clefairy got a competent episode this season, 8 out of 10. Episode 65, The Battle of the Badge. Ash goes back to Viridian for his 8th badge. Why is this so boring? It has several features in an episode I like good team-ups, Team Rocket stealing a Pokemon successfully, some alright battles, Gary and Giovanni are 2 of my favorite characters and having them interact was fun. I don't understand why the plot was about getting Togepi back. That's the majority of this episode. It goes 5 minutes of Gary's battle, 5 minutes of Ash's lame battle, 10 minutes of Togepi shenanigans. Also Giovanni, the guys get you a Pokemon that barely exists and you brush it off. Aren't you supposed to be the smart one here? This episode was just padding through and through, and it was so incredibly boring. It's getting a 4 instead of a 3, as the Giovanni and Gary fight was fun to watch, and amidst all the mediocre jokes, there was a handful of really good ones. 4 out of 10. Episode 66, it's Mr. Mime time. Ash and gang try to get Mr. Mime for the circus. Finally, another campy, fun filler. This episode has a fun plot, good jokes, great animation, it doesn't do anything extraordinary, and that's okay. Sometimes I want a laid-back, fun filler episode, and this one pulled it off spectacularly. Most of these fun, but not much to say fillers, land in 7, but I'm giving this one the extra edge for just how amazing the animation was when it had no right to be, and some of the jokes being really funny. 8 out of 10. Episode 67, Showdown at the Poké Corral. This episode really doesn't have a plot, but I loved it. I love seeing the characters interact and seeing Professor Oak's day-to-day routine. I especially love how in this episode in Battle of the Badge, Gary and Ash's rivalry goes from hateful and spiteful to a friendly rivalry where both sides at least want to see the other succeed. Notice here how Gary, for what I believe to be the first time in the season, doesn't leave with a smell you later or some sort of line like that. It's a little detail that I love. If I had to complain about something, it would be that Team Rocket did nothing but say a few funny lines, and the tease of an Ash-Gary battle was so frustrating to see. I wish we got to see that. When it eventually happens in Johto, it's one of the best battles in the franchise. It sucks that we have to wait that long. And I guess there was the one in the Orange Islands, but that one kind of sucked. But those are two very minor complaints. Even without a plot, this episode's getting a 9 out of 10. Can't wait for the Pokemon League. Episode 68, The Evolution Solution. The gang finds out why Shelter bikes Slowpoke tails. This one was really boring. I really liked Professor Westwood, he was entertaining, but everything else was bland. Also, there was one really infuriating thing. The plot. No, the mystery isn't why Shelter bites the tails, it's why it goes from a shell to spiky. They bring it up in the episode, but they act like this isn't the real mystery. And it was a dub change too, this wasn't in the original. But that's all I got. I was falling asleep during this. 4 out of 10. Episode 69, The Pikahuna. After almost drowning, Ash tags along with the surfer dude and his Pikachu. This episode had some pretty poor animation and abysmal dubbing. However, the story itself I loved. It had that 90s Disney Channel original movie cheese to it that I could not get enough of. Victor was really fun, very soothing character, and had a nice believable backstory. Some of the shots looked almost like they were painted, they looked so good. And, well directly told at the end, has a nice little message to it. It's not the best by any stretch, but it's definitely a very relaxing episode. 7 out of 10. Episode 70, Make Room for Gloom. The gang dick around in a nursery or something. I don't know, man, this was just nothing. The animation was existent, and even after watching it, I could not tell you a plot at all. There's some decent jokes, but that's not saying much. However, there is one thing that pushes it out of 5 range. Florenda is such a whiny f***ing bitch. I hate nearly every line she has. Every line is always, boo-hoo, I'm such a failure and bad at everything, even though literally everything I've done goes against that. And, look, I may be biased here, as this attitude really struck a chord with me and reminded me heavily of an ex-friend who was like that. But even putting that bias aside, she's like this for the rest of the episode. Boring! If she was a generic character of the week, easy 5 out of 10. But for being one of the most annoying and boring characters, right behind AJ, this can only get a 4 out of 10. It probably should be getting a 3, but I'm saving it just that ever so slightly. Episode 71, Light, Camera, Quaction. The gang helps make a movie. I'm so incredibly split on this episode. The animation ranges from really good to abysmal. The jokes range from laugh out loud to groan-worthy. The pacing goes from energetic to non-existent, with the most pointless Jigglypuff scene in all the show. Usually I say 5 out of 10 episodes for stuff I feel like had nothing, but this is an instance where I don't feel comfortable giving it a 6, as there's too much I didn't like. But I also don't feel giving it a 4 is good, because there's too much I liked. However, I will say I'm kind of leaning towards the 4 here, as the awful animation is more precedent than the other issues, and even makes some of the fun points and funny jokes not land well. 4 out of 10. Episode 72, Go West, Young Meowth. The gang travels to Hollywood for their movie premiere. While there, Meowth recalls back his days growing up in Hollywood. Most shows have villain backstories. Hell, this show's villain backstory is one of my favorite, Holy Matrimony. But very few shows have a backstory for the pet mascot, and nothing prepared me for this mascot's backstory to be one of the best written in the entire series. I absolutely love this episode. Meowth's backstory is both heartwarming and depressing. He pushes himself, took his awful situation, and spun it into something good, and achieved his goals of becoming more human. But at the end of the day, he doesn't get what he wants. Not only is this constant beating down on the starving animal really sad, but the fact that he changes himself to appeal to this gold digger Meowth who doesn't want him no matter what he's like, even after years of his original encounter, it's so damn hard to hear. Another thing, I love the constant flip-flop between flashback and modern day, and it's done in such a brilliant way with these brilliant cuts. I love the Meowth gang, and overall there were some fantastic jokes. But my favorite thing, and probably my favorite thing in this entire season, is Meowth Song. It's an English cover of the Japanese credit theme, fittingly called Meowth Song. It's a beautiful work of music in both languages. I highly recommend listening to them. I can't play them here because of copyright, but it's such a soothing, legitimate tearjerker song by someone you would not expect to have a good singing voice. If I had to grasp at straws for complaints, it would be that the animation was just good, not amazing, but that doesn't affect the rating in any way. I've gushed about this episode, and I feel like I could continue talking about it. I might do a full review on it. It's no secret by now, it's getting a 10 out of 10. Episode 73, To Master the Unexpected. The gang meets up with Bruno. I haven't laughed this hard since the Bridge Bite gang. This episode was great. I love seeing one of the Elite Four members, as, to my knowledge, they don't appear much in the anime, and Bruno was a great pick. He's got such a strange, powerful, almost threatening energy around him, when in reality, he's just a big dumb goof. That bring a fork line made me laugh so hard I had to pause the episode. I really like the banter between the three. It felt really realistic and really sweet in a they've been together so long they're almost like family sort of way. My only complaint is that the old lady shack really has nothing to do with the plot other than providing a great Team Rocket motto. With it being in 2x speed while they're dressed as old people, so they're talking slowly to pretend they're old, but it's in 2x speed, so it's really fast and really high pitch. It's hard to explain, you just gotta see it, it's really funny. One of the best comedic episodes though, but I still think the Bridge Bite gang's got it beat, 9 out of 10. Episode 74, The Ancient Puzzle of Pokémopolis. The gang find an ancient artifact while training for the Pokemon League. This episode's split into 3 parts with me. Part 1 is the comedic setup where every joke lands. My favorite joke was the one where Eve states that she found the object and the twerps just sit in the back just utterly disappointed. That gave me a good laugh. Part 2 is explaining this ancient civilization and giving a really unique backstory of the Pokemon world. And the last, and best part, is the giant Gengar and Alakazam fight. It was so awesome seeing these beasts fight. On top of how cool the fight was, the colors were really pretty with some gorgeous blues and blacks. I thoroughly enjoyed every part of the episode. If I had a nitpick, Team Rocket did nothing, but I'd rather have them not meddle with a good story than have them do absolutely nothing to fill their quota. The more I think about it, the more and more I like it. It started out as a 7, but the more and more I'm talking about it, the more and more I, again, like it. So I'm giving it a mid-range 9 out of 10. Episode 75, Bad to the Bone. A man gets his badges stolen and the gang help him out. I did not remember this episode one bit when rewatching it, but hot damn did it impress me. This is my favorite episodes in the series now. Yeah, you heard me. My favorite episode in the whole series. Let's go over the checklist of everything I liked in this episode. The animation is energetic and fluid the whole time, has some all-timer jokes, has some great callbacks, really fun characters, great plot. It has everything here, and it's done nearly perfectly. I love how they explained the badge level rules and made it more appropriate to the anime. When Atoshi lost his badges, Marowak wouldn't listen to it anymore because the only thing Marowak wanted to do was be in the league, and now that he doesn't have the badges and thus can't be in the league anymore, he leaves them. That's such an awesome and unique way to explain that. The only thing I don't like here is Jessie going rogue out of nowhere, even if it does include a nice reference to the fact she's always wanted to be a Pokemon trainer. Well, it doesn't fit the perfect category, as that flaw does really stick out. It's, in my subjective opinion, perfect, and I'm so happy I was able to rediscover this episode and rewatch. 9 out of 10. Episode 76, All Fired Up. The gang run the league torch. This was so boring. Not only was the plot borderline non-existent with no tension, there was no jokes or good animation to back anything up. This Santa guy had an extra fire on him, so that's 5 minutes wasted on Team Rocket antics. And then, when Team Rocket seals the fire again, it feels pointless as we know there's another solution right there, but instead we get a boring-ass metal cricket fight. There was one really good scene here. The night scene with Ash thinking about the league. That was really well done. However, 1 minute of a 22-minute bore fest could not save it from a 3 out of 10. Episode 77, Round 1, begin. Ash fights Mandy on the water arena. With the start of the league, I'm introducing a new rule. If an episode has less than 5 minutes of battles, it's losing a point. This is the peak of the series, and I came here for battles. There should be little to no filler. With that being said, this episode was lame, but not terrible. I like the Team Rocket stuff, that was quite fun, but everything else is just forgettable. Then the battle. Ash wipes the floor with an unevolved, never even used crab. This loses all tension, mainly when it gets down to the end where it looks like King Lear is about to lose, as Mandy brings out his ace in the hole, because if King Lear loses, Ash still has 2 other Pokemon. It's not that big of a deal, including one of them being an electric type, which could just shock the pool. It's so dumb. The best league battles are the one where it comes down to a one-on-one with the strongest Pokemon. This was just none of that. Not to mention, this episode has some really poor dubbing and especially poor animation. 4 out of 10, but with the league rule, it's a 3 out of 10. Episode 78, Fire and Ice. Team Rocket filler in the middle of the Pokemon League. This episode has some really good jokes, really good animation, especially in the fights, and I love seeing how important the league is to Kanto, like how the Olympics are super important to a country. But my main problem is the plot. Why the f*** is a plot about a Team Rocket scam in the middle of the goddamn Pokemon League and not about the f***ing battles? Let me get this straight. You'll show 2 ends of battles, have really good animation and really good strategies, and spend the rest of the bleeding 15 minutes about food and Pokemon Center scams? If this was a regular episode, sure, it's a good episode, but this is the f***ing end of the season. It's a goddamn Pokemon League. I want to see the battles, not these random ass plots. This doesn't feel like a league episode, and should not be a part of the climax of the series. If this was a normal episode, 6 out of 10. But it being part of the finale and being completely pointless, I cannot look past that. And in my heart, it's a 2 out of 10. Episode 79, the 4th round rumble. Ash takes on his 4th opponent. Now this is a league episode. No nonsense, no filler, just 5 minutes of setup and 15 minutes of fighting. And it's wonderful. The animation is good, not the best, but it works. And Misty and Brock's banner was on point. But the best thing about this episode is having Gary lose. Ash's biggest rival being defeated gives Ash this sense of pointlessness and uncertainty. Ash has always considered Gary stronger. Now that he's defeated, who knows if Ash will make it out of the first 4 rounds. Not the best battle episode. Electric Shock Showdown or Volcanic Panic takes that cake. But by far the best league episode so far. 8 out of 10. Episode 80, A Friend Indeed. Team Rocket kidnaps Ash, and Ash tries to make it back to the Pokemon League village. Good episode. Nothing fantastic, but it was good. Had a nice little plot and some good jokes and good animation. Nothing to really complain about. I'm also not going to give this one the league role, as it's laid out in the beginning that this is a bridge episode between the first 4 qualifier battles and the Indigo Stadium battles. This episode is really nothing special, but it doesn't really do anything bad. 6 out of 10. Episode 81, Friend and Foe Alike. Team Rocket kidnaps Ash, and Ash tries to make it back to the Pokemon League. Wait a minute. This is the same damn plot as the last episode! I get reusing plot points, but this is the same episode back to back. And to make it worse, this one doesn't have time to mess around as there's a battle afterwards. Are you f***ing kidding me? I'll give Fire and Ice this. At least the core plot was new. Maybe not super original, as it's still a Team Rocket scam, but it was new. And to add on to that, this is one of the worst battles in the whole season, with stock fight images and having multiple cases of sleep equals KO. Team Rocket interrupts getting back to the league 4 goddamn f***ing times! I love Team Rocket, but when they do shit like this is when I almost wish they weren't in the show, or at least didn't have to appear in every episode. However, while I hate this episode, I have to give it one major prop. Having Ash lose, especially in the way that he did, is absolutely brilliant. Ash is not a good trainer. That idea has been reinforced all the way through episode 3. Ash is not, and for the longest time, has not been a good trainer. The main highlight of that is Charizard. Charizard does not respect Ash. Charizard does not have faith in Ash and does its own thing. So having Ash bank on Charizard for this battle and him not wanting to battle is brilliant. It truly shows that Ash did not take the time to train at all. Remember those 8 episodes before the league? Every single one was filler, with no training. Ash especially never trained Charizard and always gambled on it obeying. It's a 10 out of 10 scene in a 1 out of 10 episode, as it gives Ash the reality check he desperately needed. I also love how realistic Ash takes it. He's not happy or understanding or whatnot, he's crying. His immediate reaction is sadness and tears. It's a wonderfully done moment that happens to fall here. This episode gets a 2 out of 10, a low one at that, but if I ranked it on their moments alone, this would be an 11 out of 10. Episode 82, Friends to the End. Ash sulks in his depression after losing. The end of the season, and thankfully, one of the better League episodes. Let's start with the negatives, so I can end on a positive note. The Team Rocket plot kind of felt shoehorned in, and very unneeded, and the dumbing in places felt really off. But I overall really liked this episode for one main component. It's continuing the depression Ash felt after losing and how he overcame it. The beginning is painting the picture that Ash has not gotten over his loss, not doing anything for at least a day, and lashing out at those who don't deserve it. And hell man, it hurt to watch because it's really realistic. But as we get to Richie's battle, oh yeah, after Gary got knocked out, Richie became Ash's main rival, but he's such a non-present I forgot to mention him. We see him lose and how he's handling it. As Ash and Richie have their heart-to-heart, Richie basically tells Ash that, yeah, losing sucks, but it's not the end of the journey. Get strong, surround yourself with good friends, and overcome your struggles. That right there is a fantastic message. Ash needed a peer and someone he admires to tell him that. And the only other person that tried to comfort him was Misty, and even then that wasn't really comforting at all. She was just affirming the point that he sucks. A wonderful way to end the season, and a great message anyone can learn from. A light 8 out of 10 to end the season with. And that's that. The end of the season. Before I go on to the end card stuff, here's the season ranking from worst to best. Starting off with the worst, we got Beauty and the Beach, The Path to the Pokemon League, The March of the Executor Squad, Friend and Foe Alike, Fire and Ice, All Fired Up, Riddle Me This, So Near Yet So Farfetch'd, Hypno's Naptime, Mystery at the Lighthouse, Round 1, Begin, The Battle of the Badge, The Evolution Solution, Make Room for Gloom, Beach Blank Out Blastoise, Who Gets to Keep Togepi, Showdown in Pewter City, The Challenge of the Samurai, The Song of Jigglypuff, Princess vs. Princess, The Punchy Pokémon, Lights, Camera, Quaction, The Kangaskhan Kid, Clefairy and the Moonstone, Pokémon Paparazzi, The Misty Mermaid, The Breeding Center Secret, Pokémon Scent-sation, The Waterflowers of Cerulean City, The Battling Eevee Brothers, Battle Aboard the St. Anne, The Tower of Terror, Bye Bye Butterfree, Dig Those Digletts, The Problem with Paris, The Purr-fect Hero, A Friend Indeed, The Peak Kahuna, Pokémon Emergency, Ditto's Mysterious Mansion, Snow Way Out, Holiday Hijinks, Bulbasaur in the Hidden Village, Island of the Giant Pokemon, Wake Up Snorlax, The Ninja Poké-Showdown, Pokemon Fashion Flash, Ash Catches a Pokemon, Friends to the End, Here Comes the Squirtle Squad, Case of the K9 Caper, Sparks Fly for Magnemite, The Flame Pokémon-athon, It's Mr. Mime Time, The Ultimate Test, Clefairy Tales, Electric Soldier Porygon, The Ghost of Maiden Peak, Attack of the Prehistoric Pokemon, The 4th Round Rumble, Volcanic Panic, Electric Shock Showdown, Pokemon Shipwreck, Primeape Goes Bananas, The School of Hard Knocks, Tentacool and Tentacruel, The Ancient Puzzle of Pokémopolis, Pokemon I Choose You, A Chansey Operation, The Legend of Dratini, Haunter vs. Kadabra, Showdown at Dark City, Showdown at Poké Corral, Abra and the Psychic Showdown, Pikachu's Goodbye, Bulbasaur's Mysterious Garden, To Master the Unexpected, The Bridge Bite Gang, Bad to the Bone, Holy Matrimony, Charmander, the Stray Pokemon, and finally, number 1, Go West, Young Meowth. And putting it all into a graph, here's how the ups and downs look visually. And wow, this is interesting as hell. Pokemon Indigo League is my favorite season of Pokemon because they weren't afraid to take risk. Once Pokemon became this multimedia conglomerate, I felt like the anime had to be way safer with its materials. While this season had episodes that riled me up, and it had some all-timers, it had very few boring episodes. It's a mixed bag for sure, but I like it that way. I like how in the span of 7 episodes, I can go from my favorite to my least favorite. That rarely happens in shows. And to wrap up the season talk on a nice little bow, the average rating came out to a grand 6.4 out of 10 per episode, or an okay to good rating. But to me, the season will always be a 10 out of 10. Thank you to everyone who sat through this. This has been my passion project for the last 4 months. yeah, 4 months. Yeah, totally just 4 months, not half a year. And I loved making it. And thank you so much to It's Gabe for helping me edit. I can't thank you enough for this. I've loved doing this for the past 5 years, and you guys are the reason I keep doing it. Until next time, see you then.